And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Francis Yates, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. Oh my God. Shang-Chi absolutely destroyed all the box office expectations, making over $75.5 million on its opening weekend and $90 million for the long weekend. This is incredible. The entire industry, and you too, peg this as hitting a respectable $45 to $50 million range. With all the things working against it, how on earth did Shang-Chi blow up so huge? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, when you sit down and look at all the things working against Shang-Chi, number one, a mediocre at best marketing campaign. Again, other than seeing Wong and Abomination in that one spot in that trailer, I didn't think the trailers for Shang-Chi were great. The fact that Kevin Feige was spending all of his time talking about Eternals didn't point to maybe Shang-Chi being all that great. The fact that, as far as American audiences are concerned, there was no big name stars in this thing. Awkwafina was your biggest star. Awkwafina was your biggest star. Now, if you go to China, I mean, Tony Leung, that's different. But as far as American audiences go, no big stars. No real heavy MCU heavy hitters that anybody recognized. And on top of all of that, not just are we still in the pandemic, but we're in the middle of a major spike in the pandemic. Rob, when you look at all those factors, somebody like me who absolutely loves this movie said, I think it's going to struggle to have big success box office though. So I was pegging it at, as Yates said in the email, a respectable $45 to $50 million opening weekend. And I think a $45 to $50 million opening weekend would have been pretty respectable. What I did not anticipate was, and I think nobody in the industry anticipated, was I knew how much I loved this movie, Rob. I know how much I love this movie. What I didn't anticipate was how much other people would like this movie as much as me. And the word of mouth on this film. Now, again, not everybody thinks this movie is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but almost everybody likes it. But far more people than I anticipated absolutely loved it and started evangelizing this film way bigger than I thought that they would. And, some people will say to me, but John, it's a Marvel film. Well, it's because it's a Marvel film is why I still thought it could make 45 to 50. Like, I think any other film with all those things working against them, bad trailers. I mean, there weren't terrible trailers, but like not great trailers, pandemic, no big name stars, all this kind of stuff. If it wasn't a Marvel film, I would have pegged it to open around Suicide Squad numbers, 25, maybe $26 million. But because it's Marvel, I thought 45 to 50. It eviscerated, Rob. It absolutely eviscerated those numbers. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety, who writes, prior to the debut of Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Disney CEO Bob Chapek called its old school theatrical release an interesting experiment. The experiment in question: would enough people show up to their local multiplex to see the latest Marvel movie? This weekend's box office tallies revealed that, yes, even with the Delta variant raging, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings could deliver movie theaters a much-needed jolt. The 25th entry of the Marvel Cinematic Universe had a bigger debut than the studio initially reported, collecting a mighty $90 million over the 4-day Labor Day holiday weekend. This thing is a runaway success. And Rob, I look back at, Black Widow that came out during a lull in the pandemic, where the pandemic, we saw the numbers going down instead of in the spike that we're in now. A Black Widow movie that had arguably one of the biggest movie stars in the world, certainly one of the most recognizable movie stars in the world in Scarlett Johansson. A movie that had an OG Avenger MCU character that had been in 7, 8, 9 of the movies already, including some of the big ones with Endgame and Infinity War, and played prominently in all those things. I mean, when you look at that and see that I mean, the idiotic Disney Plus addition to it notwithstanding, I mean, you would figure that I mean, you see it opening at 80 and you figure this thing would come in much less. Rob, I think this is fantastic. I am very surprised. I'm not surprised that it came in higher than I guessed with all the positive word of mouth we're seeing, but I am surprised how much higher this came in, and I couldn't be happier for it. Rob, you see the opening weekend numbers, incredible 4-day weekend numbers as well. This movie, by the end of tomorrow, they're projecting worldwide, this movie's already going to make its production budget back, which is impressive. Rob, why did this movie exceed box office expectations the way that it did? What are your thoughts?
Well, look, I mean, you and I, when you took me to see this movie, you'd seen it before. And when I walked out of it, I was kind of stunned by what kind of a movie it was. Because I knew Shang-Chi from the comics, you know, very much James Bond meets Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee. And this was a straight up wuxia fantasy film. And I didn't expect that. And from the opening moments of this movie, I don't want to say what happens, but it involves Shang-Chi's father. I was like, wait a minute, this is much different than I expected, and in a delightful way. And I think people are going to this movie. I mean, after all, Marvel is there. The Marvel movies, for the most part, have been wildly entertaining. And I think as much as I did enjoy Black Widow, but it didn't break any new ground. Whereas this movie, once again, Marvel tackled a genre it hadn't tackled before, which was Asian fantasy cinema. I mean, there's dragons in this movie. You know, I would not have thought that. They certainly didn't show. I mean, you had the one shot under the water that there was like, could have been a dream sequence. I didn't know. And I found this movie to be wildly entertaining, especially as someone who grew up watching these kinds of films. I mean, if you like Big Trouble in Little China, you know, and you like Ashes of Time, or you like Hero, or you like House of Flying Daggers, or whatever, you're going to go to this movie and be like, wait a minute. This isn't what I thought. This is much bigger and better than I thought it was going to be. And it's just wildly entertaining. And it does exactly what movies are supposed to do. Whereas I liked Black Widow, and I liked the relation. I could have just watched Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh wandering around, you know, the world chatting. I would have loved that. But it didn't exactly break any new ground. It didn't surprise me. But Shang-Chi did. And it was just, I thought, a really entertaining time at the movies. I thought it began, it started out first and foremost, when you meet Shang-Chi and Awkwafina, they're like people you want to hang out with. Like, let's say before this became a Marvel movie, the way they're both introduced, talking to their friends and going out, and rather than just going to bed and getting up early for work, they go out and karaoke and get hammered. I'm like, I like these people. I want to hang out with them. I'm tired of being in a pandemic. I want to hang out with Sean and Awkwafina. That's how the movie began. And I think it drew audiences in, and I really think it provided what people have forgotten could be had at the movies. And that is a really great time. You're just hanging out with your friends that turn out to be people that may or may not save the world. And yet they begin as relatable people. They draw you in. You watch this story unfold. And I would call the movie delicious. You know, we were called shills, John, because we're like, oh, these guys, how good can this movie be? Well, don't listen to us. Go see the movie. And people did. And we were right.
And people did, and they went in much bigger numbers. Now, Rob, I'm seeing some people in the live chat are saying, by the way, Hula Goo 79 sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Hula Goo. I see a couple people in the live chat saying, well, it only made that much because it was a holiday weekend. This holiday weekend is one of the worst weekends historically for box office.
Yeah, this didn't just make money for the holiday weekend. It shattered, like destroyed every previous record by a wide margin. No one opens movies on Labor Day because people don't go to films. The fact that this made as much money, this is pre-pandemic level money. It shattered the pre-pandemic level record.
Yeah, and you know what the all-time record for movies opening on Labor Day weekend is?
And this is pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. $30 million.
Yeah.
$30 million is the previous record. I mean, so basically studios have avoided putting movies on that weekend because that's generally the weekend that people aren't going to the movies. They're going out of town, they're doing whatever. And so I'd say personally, it ain't because it's on the Labor Day weekend. For me personally, it's like, that just makes it more astonishing that it did that. Like I mean, it's like almost like, oh gosh, 2.5x over the record. It's absolutely crazy that they were able to do that. Anyway, guys, why do you think that Shang-Chi was able to shatter the box office expectations as hard and as strong as they did? Obviously, the movie's good, but so is Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad's great, in my opinion. Not everybody loves it. Suicide Squad, I will say it, is effing fantastic. But it wasn't able to make any money. Shang-Chi, also effing fantastic, did come out and was able to make money and exceeded the expectations. Why did it do that? What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.